Hello and welcome to the new edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Today we're going to do an expert vlog where I'm going to attempt to race Mark on the 10th of June prize times crossword. This is an interesting puzzle. I can tell you now it was not easy. Lots of reasonably difficult words and lots of very awkward wordplay. So let's see how we both go on without further ado, and let's go now. So one of the things that annoyed me about this puzzle was that I couldn't solve one across. I looked at this, didn't think in any way that great force abroad could possibly be referring to a force of nature. I was thinking of police forces and then assumed it would be something in Latin or something that I wouldn't know. So I was sort of pretty frustrated with one across. It was obviously an anagram, but I wasn't going to get it. The pun at one down, we both got fairly quickly. Vacuum cleaning, I'm not sure there's a tip for that. You just have to sort of be on the right wavelength for the solver. You can see that Mark immediately tuned in to Victoria Falls, having got vacuum cleaning, whereas I didn't, although I did solve upside down reasonably quickly. Oops, and there's the first mistake from me. I've read No Beggar. I've seen it's an anagram of something involving a C, an R, an E, an O, and an S, and I've just thought, well, Richard's Croesus, thrown that in. Somewhat fortunately, because the O was in the right place and that allowed me to get Orpington correctly. But yeah, this definitely doesn't help if you're trying to race Mark Goodliffe in a times crossword. Best to not make any errors and best to be a bit quicker. Ironically, I also have the S correct, which means I have got a chance of getting overdosing, and we'll see how we do with that. You can see Victoria Falls has frankly really helped Mark. He's managed to get inside her, which didn't give him the opportunity to make a mistake on Croesus. Not that he would anyway, actually, and he's just basically throwing in all sorts of answers. One of the things I will say here about Mark solving, though, is that he has an awkward crossing at I think it's 2 down and 9 across, where there's only one more checked letter he can get, and it's a mutual checked letter. And I know this will have been irritating him, having to leave this and to come back to it, because it's one of those things where if you just can't get one of the answers, you'll never get the help from the other answer either. And both of these clues were a bit odd, actually, and we'll talk about them in more detail when Mark gets to them, which he's obviously going to get to them before I do. Although at the moment it's not a total walkover. You know, I've managed to get fairway and loop without any help, and now, you know, I can't remember if I get Victoria Falls now, but one would hope it wouldn't be too much longer before my brain would sort of click into gear and provide me with the answer. Although you can see, okay, so I've got the English Civil War one, which was not too difficult. Yeah, but Mark's still well ahead. Carpet sweepers, 8 down was absolutely brutal. I mean, even when I had all the letters, I still managed to put in tweezers, I think, for the second word. So yeah, it wasn't occurring to me. And one of the interesting things about the way that Mark solves generally is that he has a sort of genius for being able to fill in words once he has letters. So he can almost, if you give him, you know, a word that begins E blank P blank 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 E, he could probably list every single English word that fitted that gap in about 2 seconds. So a lot of the time he's solving by sort of imprinting possible words on the spaces and referring to the clue and sort of he can pick out things from the clue that give him anything. So for expanse, he's probably looking. He knows expanse is a possibility. He sees pan as a synonym for the pull to pieces, and he knows the answer is expanse, and all it is then is checking. And for most people, they don't have that same capacity. But it's interesting in this puzzle that makes this puzzle almost a puzzle of two halves for Mark. He gets Victoria Falls and vacuum cleaning, and then is able to just complete the sort of the entire half of the grid if you were to fold it down the northeast to southwest diagonal. But then he sort of hits a bit of a block because he can't get many letters, and he's having to cold solve in the bottom right, and he's still quick, but he's just not quite as devastatingly quick. And you can see I'm not doing so badly here. I'm still well behind, but I mean, this is a good performance from me, and Mark would say this was a slow performance from him, but that's a measure partly of how difficult this crossword was. Zinc was an annoying answer at 23 down. You immediately see the unknown, and all expert solvers will be thinking X, Y, Z. Then you think immediately zinc, but it took me far too long to think of the actual wordplay was breaking down as Z plus ink, just being an abbreviation for included. And that doesn't help with trying to get nutrition, which was one of the very difficult wordplays in this puzzle. And you can see we've both slowed down here. I mean, he's still got more help than I have in the bottom right, and he has got cracker crib, which was I mean, to be honest, that's not an expression I maybe have heard it once before in my life, but it's not on the tip of my tongue, and I had to get that from the wordplay, and I wasn't very quick about doing that. So you can see Mark has got the clone crossing now. I mean, just to take a quick look at that, I mean, I think the wordplay for clone breaks down as C for court, and then having left company, I think, is trying to hint at if you've left company, you are lone. So having left company, you are lone. But it's quite strained, and it's a very interesting clue for that reason. And similarly for 2 down, come over and put out a sign. Well, come over looks like it's cross. So, but it looks like it's trying to get at across, and then putting out the A to give a sign which is cross. Again, I think I've missed a trick here with the wordplay. I'm not quite understanding it properly, but that indicates how difficult these crossings can be, especially if both clues are difficult. I've managed to correct creases now, and I've got scintilla, so I'm still way behind, as we can see. Mark's already got carpet sweepers. Q-tip is brutal, absolutely brutal. I mean, one of the things I was thinking, as I'm sure you were, was if you see the X, the V, the F, the Z once you have zinc in, you're thinking, has the compiler tried to create a pangram? So I was on the lookout for J's and Q's, and that did actually help with Q-tip. So Mark's done now, and look, if you just look at where his cursor is, he hasn't submitted, he's looking at the clue for clone. He's trying to parse it and check that he's comfortable it's the right answer, and there he submits correctly in about 8 minutes 48, which I can tell you is about as slow as he ever does at the Times crossword, which shows you how difficult this was. Muggins here is still, so this is now 9 minutes. I've got, well, probably just over half done, aren't I? And I plod on from here, and I think I finish about 14 minutes. So definitely a win for me. Only being 5 or 6 minutes slower than Mark. yeah, I mean, nutrition, that was very hard to spot for me. Something life enhancing was the definition there. And then you've got one found in character of Greek. So character of Greek is the nu, nu, and then I think it's Triton around the outside of the eye. So yeah, not easy. And split pins, we should just briefly mention that too. I think split pins, if you asked me what that meant, I would have said it was some sort of 10-pin bowling term, when you get split and you can't get both pins in one go. Apparently it's also something you hold things with, but I certainly didn't know that, and had to resort to the wordplay. Great puzzle. Really like puzzles like this, where they really force you to think. And perhaps these help me a bit in these races, because the fact that they're difficult seems to narrow the gap between us a bit to something a bit less ridiculous. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was a bit instructive, and we'll see you next time.